I was describing this to the second guide I sat with. I said, so now I feel the full range of emotion. I'm kind of using my hand like that. And he said, hey, Greg, that's you saying goodbye to depression, which I thought was pretty cool. My life before my first psychedelic experience, by all accounts, was blessed in so many ways. Two loving parents, psychiatrist and psychologist, stayed together, still together today. I have a wonderful relationship with them today. They gave me, they took care of my needs. They gave me love. I grew up in upper middle class environment in Pennsylvania. I went to private school from first grade through sixth grade, and it was a very progressive private school. It was out in the woods, and you call your teacher by their first name, and there were no tests and no grades. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful environment. That ended in sixth grade because I then switched to a very standard public school. And looking back now, I can see that that was an incredibly traumatic experience. It felt like prison to me. I loved school until that point. I didn't even understand the concept of not liking school until I switched to public school. And this is not a harsh on public school. This is my experience. But for me, I was just very boxed in. I was being forced to do things and learn things that I didn't care about. I can look back now, and this leads to a fear I have of feeling trapped. And that's how I felt in that moment. What I did not do is seek help. My parents were always there for me if I sought help from them. However, I did not seek help from them. The flip side of that is they did not notice how much I was suffering. And I said before, I have a wonderful relationship with my parents. I've talked to them about these things. They raised me with love and the best intentions, and they made mistakes, just as I am making mistakes with my children. They viewed me as a happy kid. In some respects I was, but I was also just keeping so much inside. I thought this is just the way it was. This is what I had to endure. I can see how this led to depression. Withdrawing, making myself alone, feeling like I didn't have help and support in certain ways. Again, overall, my parents were there for me, and not everyone can say that. Before my psychedelic healing journey, I was on Zoloft for about a dozen years and Wellbutrin for over 20 years. But what became apparent through therapy and prompts to feel things in my body was that I wasn't feeling things in my body, and that was due to the meds I was on. Or that's what I suspected, which turned out to be true. All of these are really just to say that I needed to do something different, something much more significant, just something much more powerful. My journey continues with actually engaging in a psychedelic healing experience. One of my close friends who does this work referred me to a healer guide in California who practices ayahuasca and also combo. And so leading up to that journey, I had to titrate off the meds. So I titrated off the meds for 2 weeks. And the first journey was January 15th of 2022, so less than 8 months ago. I was nervous about the experience. I was nervous about going off the meds. To prep, I just leaned really intensely into all of my health and wealth practices, exercise, meditation, yoga, diet, etc. And then also microdosing psilocybin. Arrived the first day, so this was in the morning. The guide suggested to me that as an extra precaution that I administer combo to just as a final layer of purging. Didn't know what combo was. Now I certainly do. Here's my scars. Don't know if they'll come through, but it's not psychoactive, not psychedelic. It's strictly purging, and I definitely did purge. And then starting around 5, 6 o'clock, participants in the retreat started arriving. So we started the ceremony, and she did a great job briefing us and all of that, and drank the first cup of tea, and not too much happened in the first hour. And then the effects did start coming, and music and the setting and all of that. And basically, for me, that first night was completely buoyant, jubilant, happy, fun, laughter. I've never laughed so hard in my life, and I've laughed a lot in my life. It was just a very positive experience. I will say that I started feeling very, very self-conscious with how much I was laughing, because people were crying and suffering, and I was even trying to make myself stop. And then when that first night was over, we went around to share, and I immediately said, hey, I'm so sorry if my laughter disrupted anyone. And every single person responded so positively. No, it was great to have your energy there, and I just got this really wonderful positive vibes back, and that was nice. But I was very concerned about the woman sitting next to me, because she was having a very, very rough night, crying a lot, and I'm here, I'm laughing. And it was her turn to share, and she turned to me and looked me right in the eye and said, your laughter helped me so much through this hard night. And that just was really wonderful to hear that. That was the first night, and as anyone who's done ayahuasca or read about ayahuasca has maybe heard, every night is different. And the second night was the most terrifying night of my life, bar none. It was completely the opposite for me. It was scary, it was intense, it was, at one point I became convinced everyone in the room could read my mind, which obviously was not true. And then I became convinced that we had all kind of reached this next plane in our existence, and this was kind of like forever, infinity, the void, God, consciousness, which sounds pretty cool, but it sounds really cool, but it did not feel cool. It felt like this was it. This wasn't ending. This was forever. The interesting thing was I would try to use little tricks to convince myself that this was going to end. For example, I would try not to blink. If this was forever, infinity, I probably wouldn't have to blink anymore. And then, oh, thank God I have to blink. I would look out the window and see, like, across the way, there was a house, and I could see a guy walking around in his kitchen. Okay, that's reality. I was just trying to, like, convince myself back to reality. When I later shared this with my therapist, because this disconnect that I had, this mind-body disconnect that I had, I was all cognitive, all up here. And, I didn't have use of my body and my gut and intuition in my life, in my career. I didn't have full use of all of myself. And so when I shared this experience that I'm now sharing with my therapist, she said, see, you were using your cognitive brain to navigate through this situation. That's pretty cool. I was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool, I guess. That second night ended, and this one was just a 2-night ceremony. And how I interpret some of the things that I've shared, prescription meds, if your full range of emotion is here, then it kind of it brings that band to a narrow band, so you can just go about your life and sort of be kind of even. But it cuts off the highs and it cuts off the lows. And so that first night, grandmother, ayahuasca, spirit, showed me the high, showed me the jubilant, buoyant, fun, happy laughter. And the second night, she showed me the other side, the down. And I think she was showing me my full range of, I know, I was being shown my full range after 10 and 20 years of numbing medication. So never laughed so hard, never feared, never was scared so much. I was describing this to the second guide I sat with for my second retreat, and I said, so now I feel the full range of emotion. I'm kind of using my hand like that, and he said, hey Greg, that's you saying goodbye to depression, which I thought was pretty cool. I came out of that retreat feeling incredible, open. Even after that second terrifying night, even once I woke up, I just kind of felt amazing. So what I did to integrate this experience, number one, continued with therapy, with the wonderful therapist that I'm with. Journaling has been helpful. And also, when I came back from that experience, I just became even more fascinated by psychedelic healing and psychedelic medicines, and just started devouring everything I could get my hands on, podcasts, books. And I started going to a lot of meetup groups just to connect with people and meet other people that are doing this work. And that was incredibly helpful. I refocused my whole business just to serve this psychedelic healing ecosystem. I own a web development digital marketing agency, and just continuing to learn about integration, how to integrate, how it all fits in is how I've leaned into that process. Yeah, so one tool I would recommend is, and this is going to come across as broad, is just knowledge and education. And fortunately, there's a growing amount of that. So seek out podcasts that speak to psychedelics, seek out community. I mean, I'm in a wonderful community called Empathic Health. And then after you engage in this work or in your journey, then you also have this community already there for you to help you integrate.